It's live now.
All right. You're live.
Welcome to the Rondo Patriot. This is Adetola Ajayi, and this is The Deep. Got a special guest today. Sorry, Kris Wilson of the author of the Master Plan. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying life to the fullest. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and happy Memorial Day.
Yeah, same to you.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself growing up in DC?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I grew up in Washington, D.C. around the time of the late 80s, early 90s, when the crack epidemic was sweeping through the city. And so, unfortunately, I experienced a lot of gun violence, and I lost friends and some family to gun violence. And eventually, I got swept up in the criminal justice system as well at a young age.
Okay. And I think, so after, reading your book, a lot of the experiences you experienced in DC and growing up kind of created the content of your book, but also I think, it helped you also talk about your experiences in developing as a man as well through your experiences. So can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure. So I felt it was important to tell my story through the master plan, because oftentimes we only see the back end results of people who get swept up into the criminal justice system, and then we have these preconceived notions of who these people are that get swept up. And so I am a nice person, I believe, and I've always been a good person. And so I thought it was important to tell my story of how I got swept up into the criminal justice system. And obviously, I accept responsibility that I committed a crime, but, I was a child. It was men that were stalking my family and they came after me. And unfortunately, I took a person's life and was sentenced to life in prison as a juvenile. And so that's when my life kind of just turned, and it was like being teleported to another planet.
Wow. I know that was probably very traumatic, and being incarcerated as a young man. What was the actual turning point that made you realize, this, even though you have a life sentence, that this wasn't, the end of you?
So it was about 2 years into my sentence when I was in a maximum security prison. I think I was 18 at this point, 18 or about to turn 19, and it was fights around me. People getting tattoos, people doing drugs. And I saw this one guy who was around my age who also had life, and he was teaching himself computer programming. And I walked over to him and I asked him, what are you doing? He says, I'm gonna teach myself computer programming. I'm gonna start a software company. I'm gonna buy my dream car. I'm gonna make a lot of money, and I'm gonna get out of prison. And I laughed at him. I says, dude, you don't even have a computer. How you gonna pull this off?
Right.
And he says, the system can take everything from you, but they can never take the knowledge that you put into your head, right?
Yes.
And so I thought about that. And that was the point where I locked myself in my cell for a couple of days, and I pulled out blank sheets of paper, and I started thinking about the person that I knew I was inside and who I wanted to become. And so it was I wanted to educate myself through getting my high school diploma. I wanted to get a college degree. I wanted to learn some foreign languages. I wanted to start a company. And most importantly, I just wanted to be free again, to be a positive example.
That's what's up. And because I think what you said, you learned 4 languages.
Yeah, so 4 languages. And counting, I'm still studying. I have my Italian stuff out here now. I'm brushing up, but I'm always learning. So I'm a lifelong student. But languages is a passion of mine.
Wow, that's great. And you also you got your college degree, and I see you took some class at AACC.
Yeah, so I graduated from Anne Arundel with a degree, with a specialization in sociology. And I still have a really good relationship with the school too. So I've spoken at the school.
Good.
I still maintain my relationship with my professors who were instrumental in my life through Anne Arundel. So I have a good relationship with them.
Good. And so what elements helped you develop your master plan while you were incarcerated?
So it was a combination of things that I knew I wanted to do in life. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to embrace therapy to figure out what led me to prison. And so a big component of it was sharing a copy of my master plan with someone, which was my grandmother, and giving them the power to hold me accountable. And it's like having a workout partner. You telling the workout partner, like, here's my regiment, here's what I'm going to do. And if you see me slipping, I want you to hold me accountable, right? So like that was really important to me. And another one was I needed a different set of friends. And so I knew that I was really book smart and intelligent. And so I didn't necessarily hang around people that were like that. And so I reached out to people who were smart. And sometimes I had to pay people off. Back in the day, like I give them a carton of cigarettes, and it's like, I need you to teach me the quadratic equations in algebra so I can like pass my high school, right? And they just be like, they wouldn't know me, and I just be like, here's a carton of cigarettes. And it's like, but like, who's paying for this? I thought you like was trying to buy drugs, right? So I would do stuff like that, and so I was essentially just trying to hack the system in a way, but to better myself.
That's what's up.
If that makes sense.
It really does, because people really would have to experience going to jail to know what goes on inside of jail. And I know you speak on the stigma attached to people once they come home from jail or prison,
Totally.
Incarceration. But can you speak to like you said, there's people who are very intelligent and that are incarcerated, and
Totally.
there's its own world inside of a prison. But can you speak to like some of the people that you met that really inspires you within the system?
Totally. So the person who I mentioned earlier who got in software, was teaching himself software, eventually became my mentor. His family became my family. They would visit me. They would send me money and stuff. His name was Steven. Another person in the prison, we called him Tookie, but his real name was Arthur Miles. And so he was another person who very, very intelligent, was very good at all vocational shops, carpentry, just like good with his hands and could draw. Just an amazing person. And then there were many others who, some were like not really like good people, like doing like dealing drugs in a prison, or like stabbing people, doing all kinds of stuff. But they would like protect me or say, don't, you're gonna be out, you're gonna get out of prison and you're gonna be successful. I might not get out, but like we all rooting for you. And so that was pretty cool to have people in my life like that at such a dark moment in my life.
Oh, that's so. And so when you did find out that you would be free, what was that transition like in your from your mind state within?
So it was honestly, like, I was very, very nervous because I had studied and this was all like theory and books and in therapy, and it was like I was being airdropped into hostile territory with no backup and just told to figure it out. And then when you get out of prison, it's all of these barriers that make it so difficult to be successful. For example, like when you first get out, you got to go in to meet your probation officer like twice a week and take a urinalysis that you have to pay for. And then they tell you need to get a job. It's critical. But what employer is going to let you leave work twice a week once they just hire you, right? So it's just all these different things that I had to deal with. And I knew about this before I got out. And so I was kind of mentally prepared. But what I wasn't prepared for was, being a 32-year-old, getting out of prison and then seeing folks my age with families and cars and going on vacation and had jobs and stuff, and me just not having those things. So it was a psychological component that was that would eat at me sometimes because I didn't have anything and I was homeless and I didn't have a job and stuff like that. So that was probably the toughest thing for me.
Okay. And speaking on that, because I know you speak about therapy a lot, but even during that transition, I think that's where a lot of people end up going through recidivism and going back. But I think so you spoke about, again, a lot of therapy. Do you think therapy really helped you during that transition of trying to figure it out once you got out?
Absolutely. So for me, therapy was critical in me rehabilitating myself, so much so that I still go to therapy now once a week. And because of like this pandemic, I'll Zoom in while I'll do a call with my therapist. But that's something, and especially for the African-American community, we don't talk about it enough, the importance of it. Like for me, I mean, we all should feel like this, but like, it's not that that I'm broken or like something's wrong with me. It's just that I'm like, our health is our best investment, right? So I don't have the answers to a lot of stuff. And so I feel like it's helpful to have someone in my life that can kind of coach me and help me learn more about myself in the world so that I can survive it, especially as a Black man. Like I highly encourage folks, like living in America, man, therapy is helpful.
Yes, definitely. And mental health does have a stigma in the Black community. But like I said, watching a lot of your videos, I love how you keep bringing that up. And not in like a aggressive way, just speaking on your own experience and what helped you. So I definitely commend you for that. Salute you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, my therapist actually influences a lot of my art. I may have some therapists and influence art in the house that I'll talk about later on. But
Okay.
I mean, she has a policy of like when I have stuff on my mind, or because for me, painting is cathartic, making art, and she'll tell me go home and just paint it out, and I'll paint it, and the work sells, and it's great.
That's what's up. And yeah, I see some art in the background, and definitely want you to show us, give us a tour of some of your art.
Yeah.
You also talk about some of your other businesses, and then before you do that, can you speak about how you transitioned from being homeless to creating your own job, your own company?
Sure. So before I got out of prison, I knew that the number one way how you find a job is through relationships. And so I started a career center in prison. Learn how to do resumes. So I knew that I needed a strong resume, maybe to get me an interview, probably wouldn't get me the job. And so when I came home, I had a college degree already. So I went to the University of Baltimore as a transfer student. And I got into the school and I just started doing really well in class and stuff. And I asked the school to try to help me find a job. And they did. And so they got me a job, and it was doing exactly what I wanted to do, which was workforce development and community organizing, but it was like in a really, really tough neighborhood. But I had grew up in prison, so I started doing this work, and I got promoted, and next thing you know, I'm the director, and I'm just doing like amazing work. And then our funding kind of got cut, and I had to cut a lot of my staff. And at this point, I was in business school, and so I started a furniture company, House of Da Vinci, just making furniture and restoring furniture, which was the skill set that I learned in prison. And so I started that, and I started making like a lot of money doing that, and I started hiring people. And then I started another company, a contracting company, and that company grew to like 23 employees.
Wow. And
at that point, it just made more sense for me to spend my time just doing like strategic stuff. And so I left my 9-to-5 job. And it just took off since then, just winning awards, and I won a presidential award from Obama, and I just kept, thanks. I just kept at it.
Good. So we're taking questions from the audience, and we got our first question from a Comasel Brown. He says, what's better therapy, buying art or creating art?
Oh, definitely creating art.
All right.
Hands down. Yeah.
All right. And so can you speak about how your art career is blossoming now?
Sure. Should I start showing it now? You want?
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess I could start with talking about how I got into it. Okay. And it was a friend of mine who's an artist who I would do work for, my contracting company. His name's Jeffrey Kent, a Baltimore-based artist. And when I would get off work, I would go to his art studio and watch him make art. And he would have like the house music playing, and his paintings would be deep. And so I've ended up buying some of his paintings, which I'll show you. But he would tell me that art's all around us and that it should mean something. And he said, think about stuff that you care about. And I was talking about at the time how I care about criminal justice reform. And, I was mad about, solitary confinement in this country. And so he said, turn it into a painting. And so he gave me some lessons. And so I started studying, and I found out that 80,000 to 90,000 men, women, and children are subjected to solitary confinement here in the US. And I made a painting about this, and I remember showing it to him, and he looked at me and he was like, don't ever stop painting. And so I kept painting, and that piece actually sold for a lot of money recently, which I'm happy about, but it also went to a good home. And so I can show you some of the pieces of him and switch the view. So this big piece on the wall,
wow, nice,
is a piece that was finished 3 weeks ago, and this was color theory, me studying colors and paying homage to Jackson Pollock and his style of making art.
Yes. Okay.
And so I made a couple of these pieces, but I really like this one because some of the paint I made and it like shimmers under like the right light.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like mesmerizing. I like it.
All right. Yeah, it's real nice.
Thanks. And these two pieces are by Jeffrey Kent,
Okay.
who I just was talking about, and they are from the Henrietta Locke series. And
Okay.
I'm not sure if you familiar with her, but like Hopkins appropriated, stole her sales. Yeah. But a lot of medical breakthroughs and stuff were made out of her sales and stuff. So I have a couple of pieces from that series that I really like. I guess we can go. This is an oil painting that I just purchased 3 weeks ago. And it's from a Micah graduate, the art school here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I love it. I need to put a frame on it, but it's really cool. It has a little Basquiat, Picasso kind of like, flavor to it, but it's pretty cool. This is another abstract painting that I have. I got to figure out where to put it. I was just moving stuff around, because the way I operate in my house is it's a live workspace. So my studio's downstairs, which I'll show you guys soon. And then this is kind of like my gallery. And so this is another piece, which is an image from one of my paintings on a slab of maple wood that I put into the wood. Nice. And so it's pretty cool. And this big piece here is another big piece by Jeffrey Kent, which is very interesting. These words, he's dyslexic, so a lot of his words in his pieces are backwards. Okay. So this says dementia, and the name of this painting is "Do You Remember When We Fell in Love?" One of the things I really love about art is the provenance, like a story. Like this piece has been in a bunch of shows, been in museums, but if you look closely right here, this is actually slave picked cotton from the 1800s. So it's from a chair from the 1800s where Jeffrey pulled out the cotton and put it in and created kind of a cotton field. And so I really like it. I like the provenance behind that. And so I think this is one of his best paintings, but I'm happy now that it's in my collection. This piece up here, this actually sold right when the pandemic hit. Wow. And the clients are waiting to pick it up. But this is actually a slab of concrete.
Wow.
And if you look up, it's connected with a hanging system because it's heavy, but it's not as heavy as a flat screen TV. Yeah. So this is Baltimore Street Dancers is the name of it. And so Baltimore has a very, very dope underground street dancing culture. Yes. I think we have the best street dancers in the world, in my opinion. Like anyone from here, like we naturally can like get down. And so I did a series of paintings from my Baltimore series that are about this. This one right here is a piece. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of the style of artists. What this is like reminds me of maybe Banksy. I don't know, but this is about when I was in prison, and it's called Daydreaming in the Child Hall. And so they used to have us stand in the child hall for about an hour during the summer. It'd be like 108 degrees and we'd be sweating. And the correctional officers would just stare at us and we would stare at them. And so I made this piece right here. I just got it framed up. And so I got to hang it up.
It's deep.
Another piece by Jeffrey Kent, which is a door. This is actually a sculpture. So I suppose it's painting on the other side as well, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
This piece here is another Jackson Pollock-ish piece, but this sold last week, so this is going out to LA. Okay. But I really like it. It's a good living room piece too. And it has some interesting styles of paint and minerals in it that I learned from some Japanese artists where we crunch up the minerals and mix it with the paint, and it just creates this shimmer, especially under like LED lights. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool.
Here's one. This is pastel on paper. This is my first pastel piece, and it's called "Let's Take a Selfie." And these are just little kids with the cell phone and just taking a selfie. So I really like it.
Yeah, like that.
A small sculpture from Colombia that I had commissioned. This is made out of copper and wire,
Wow.
So a guy made this by hand, and he sent me like video, like he cut his hands up every day, just like making it. But I really appreciate it. Yeah. All right, so I got more pieces in the next room. Here's another one, which is really interesting. I actually just finished this one. So this is a slab of maple wood, and it's a image that I carved into wood. But I have to paint it though. But put some paint on it. But I think it's beautiful. Let's go into the other gallery space. So this is one of my bigger pieces, which is I just got it back from American Visionary Arts Museum. I loaned it to them for a year. And this piece is about when I went to my mother's funeral. And it's titled Mama's Boys. And it's me and my little brother. Like once I went to prison, my little brother became the new mama's boy. And my mom, after the assault, she became addicted to her prescription pills and eventually heroin. She lost her job. She lost her house. And at a certain point, my mom, committed suicide. And this is me at the funeral, and certain things in the painting, I kept saying, if you see right here, it says, "Why God?" And I kept asking God at the funeral, like, why would you allow my mom to leave when she was such a nice person? And in the background, you see the prison that I was in, this black silhouette, which is Patuxent. And then if you look closely, you see mostly black men just going up into the prison system, like how we do. And the purpose of me making this painting is, I felt tremendously guilty for making a decision that I did and took myself away from my mother because I was a mama's boy. And so it's a lot of clues and a lot of other little things that I've embedded into this painting. But this is a really cool piece, I think. This one is a little way different. So this is titled F Uncle Sam. Okay. So this is about all the ways that Uncle Sam has implemented strategies to oppress people, and whether that's going to war with countries, denying voting rights, selling guns to folks, the Confederacy, or using smallpox as a way to like wipe out the Native Americans and Big Pharma. And so it's all these different things that's all embedded into this big painting that tells that story. And so, some of my art people may not want to hang on their walls, but like, I make some of these pieces because I want these stories to be told. So hopefully like there'll be in museums one day and folks, will be able to know about like these issues that I'm advocating for.
Yeah, that one's very deep right there.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I showed this. So this is Solo 7 from East Africa. It's a really cool piece. All of his work is like really like strange, upcycle, repurposed materials. Wow. But I think it's pretty cool.
I like that.
This is another Jeffrey Kent from the Henrietta series, which I really like. Expose stretcher bars, which is pretty cool. That's the whole little Basquiat style that Basquiat used to do. Yeah. This one doesn't have a name, but it's very, very strange. It's a very big painting that I just finished, and it's made of acrylic paint, peanuts, and some other kind of material that I mixed in it. So it's really interesting and like shimmers, but I like making like interesting, colorful paintings. Here we have a piece that I just finished. So this piece is actually titled Broken, and this is rope, peanuts, letters from my mom, my mother's clothing, my first cell phone that I had when I got out of prison, which is in there, upcycle plastic containers. And this is, so the chapter in my book, Broken, this piece is about how my mom and I were being attacked by her boyfriend, and we would call the police, and the police wouldn't really do anything because he was a police officer. And so just a interesting, kind of crazy painting that my therapist kind of pushed me to do. But I like it. It's very cathartic. These are the triptychs. These are by Jeffrey Kent, which are really cool. Here's a big painting by Terrell Gibbs, who's a super, super hot artist right now. He's based in Baltimore. So also a friend of mine, so I really love him. He's cool. And then I have a couple of pieces up here, oil paintings by a few oil painters here in Baltimore. This is Leah, who's pretty awesome. And there's another one of her pieces. She likes naked bodies. This is Nakia, which is pretty cool. The Skin series, which is like leather that's like sewn and paint. So I think it's really artsy and cool.
Yeah.
So I can take you guys to the studio now. How we doing on time, by the way, too?
Good. I think about 30 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. So usually, like, this is the same thing in my house in New York. Is I use the space, a space to make art. So this is another piece that I just finished. It's also on a slab of concrete.
Oh, wow.
And it's called the Shake Off. So it's Baltimore based, and it's like when that music come on, even the old heads or whatever, they get out and they just get busy.
Right.
Cool hats, footwork, and it's all about the footwork here in Baltimore too. So like if you look at their feet,
Yeah.
So this is another piece
Wow.
by Terrell Gibbs, which I really love.
Right.
And then we can go down to the studio.
I got a quick question from the audience.
Sure.
What was the inspiration for the media, especially the Peanuts? Peanuts are important to the culture.
Yeah. Well, that is a good question. So I think I was inspired by I don't know, like I was just thinking about just using, like, when I say art's all around us, and you're just like staring at something like textures, and I'll show you stuff. I'm in my studio now. I'll show you, like, I got all kinds of like prototypes and experiment with stuff. But I like to make art out of stuff that you wouldn't expect people to do. And so I'm always thinking about it. And it doesn't really like matter either, like what you use, but I just like to be creative and just try to figure out different like ways to do stuff. So this is my studio where I work at. And it also like doubles as my gym too. So like this raises up though, but I like to get up in the morning and work out and get it in. Right. This is another slab of concrete, a piece I just finished, and it's called the drum line. And I absolutely love the drum line. Like, I don't play. And so I'm doing a series of paintings about the drum line in Baltimore using the same these slabs, and then I'm gonna make animation out of these paintings and to sound. And so that's pretty cool. Here's my iPad. It's a large size painting with my actual iPad.
Oh, wow.
With let's see how many emails I had. 92,470 unanswered emails.
That's cool.
I'll share a secret about some of my art too. I think I've probably done at this point about 87 paintings in the past 3 years. Wow. And I always put clues into my pieces. And I always, if I can, I have the number 96. And if you can look, like, any chance I get to put like a number, like if you look at the power, it's 96% power on that. And that's the year I got locked up. Okay. And so I always try to put 96 or different numbers. So it's always these clues in my art. Here's another big piece that is about predatory phone calls in prison. Okay. And this is titled Calls May Be Monitored. And so I do a lot. I've done some writing. I had a few articles published at the USA Today recently. I guess in November, I published an article talking about predatory phone calls in the prison system. And so that's what that's about. And this is just another thing too about the studios. Like, if your studio is not messy like this, you're not making up. So there's no such thing really as some neat studio or whatever. It doesn't really make sense. I also have an outdoor space too where we work at.
Wow.
So there's another piece out here.
Like that.
And it's nice, little quiet backyard area. So it's pretty cool. It's another abstract homage to Jackson Pollock piece. Oh. It's pretty big.
Got a question.
Sure.
So for people that believe that collecting art is very expensive, what tips can you offer someone interested in starting their own art collection?
That's a good question. So I would say, I mean, it's a lot of tips that folks could implement. But really, like, art can be expensive, but it doesn't have to be. And so there's different gradations of like art. And I would say the most important thing is collecting art that you like, and not just like thinking about the appreciation value that you'll get from collecting art. But there's always avenues that you can take, going to graduate art schools where they do like shows, and you can just go directly to the artist before, I guess, they blow up, and you can get art from them that way. Also, you can finance art. Art is expensive. It can be expensive, but negotiate. It's always the asking price and not what the price is. And so you can just say, all right, what's the asking price? And you can make an offer, and you can negotiate that offer. And I allow people to finance paintings with me all the time. And so there's all kinds of things that folks can do. And we shouldn't be intimidated by the art, because it's so beautiful and so powerful. And, the more and more that we learn about it, it just enriches our life. Like, I took all the TVs off my wall. I just got paintings.
Wow. So, because there's a lot of messaging, kind of political in your art.
Yeah.
Would you ever run for office?
I get asked it all the time. So I try to the best of my ability to stay politically neutral, even though I did like a video endorsement, short film for Bernie Sanders. But I try to stay neutral on that, just because it's not my area. I don't really like politics, but I do know that it's necessary, and I'm involved in it. I wouldn't run for office. Like, I kind of want to stay low key. I want to make my art, and I want to travel and just do my stuff.
Yeah, and so I know I saw one place that you studied the cello.
Yeah. So I played the cello when I was young.
Okay. And so the question was, would you ever think then that you would be doing art now, and were there examples of Black artists when you were growing up that you might have looked up to?
Oh, that's a good question. So I've been thinking about that, because I get asked that often. And my mom would send me on field trips, like to the Kennedy Center or to like museums, and I just like didn't want to do all this stuff, but they were just like, you doing it, right? And so I'm guessing that maybe some of that stuff like just sunk in. Maybe it stuck. Right. I think because I wasn't into sports really, like growing up. I just was like an odd kid, so to speak. And like now it's just pouring out. So maybe it was always there. Wow.
Good. And I'm, because I know you grew up in DC. I know you got to be a Go-Go fan, right?
I got to be a what fan?
A Go-Go fan.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
But I saw some of your videos. You really you be painting to the house music.
Music, yeah.
What do you think is better?
Oh, that. So I mean, of course, I'm gonna say house music is better, but Go-Go is different. Like, and the reason why I honestly don't listen to Go-Go. I was listening to it maybe a couple of days ago, like some old Backyard, and I was listening to some Northeast Groovers. Yeah. But I write about this in my book. Like, my experiences with the Go-Go's is I would lose a lot of friends. And so just listen, every time I hear it and listen about it, it takes me back to like DC, early 90s, mid 90s. And so it kind of like triggers stuff in me. So it's just not healthy for me to listen to. And like club music, I just like dancing. I like just like getting it in. It's happy music, like sweating. And I like it. That's my jam.
That's what's up.
Get my heart rate up.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a question on this. How can we make the system better for people when they get out of prison?
As in like the reentry process, or just, okay. So I think, so we're working, when I say we're, like advocates all over the country to try to do this very thing. And there's things like, taking off having to check the box on the application to apply for a job. Now, you can ask the question, but at least allow someone to get an interview based off the merits of their resume or their past. And so like, that's something that's important. Also, maybe some tax benefits or some incentives for folks to hire people that were formerly incarcerated. You know, I'm biased, but I do believe that we work really, really hard if given the opportunity. And so those are some things that I think that could make it easier. And the other thing too, which is simple but it's very important, is for the American public, people who haven't been to prison, to understand how people end up in prison, and then the process that 95% of folks inside of prisons are most likely going to come back home, right? Back into our communities. And so as taxpaying citizens, we should be more invested or, we should be more invested in like what happens to people while they're in prison. How do they spend their time? Do they have access to education? Because like if they don't have these things, then they're going to work on how to be a better criminal and come back home and this is going to make it worse for our communities. And we're paying for this. And so those are some things that I encourage people to think about and even advocate for. Even when we're going to vote for presidents, you also have to vote for like judges and like prosecutors. And like, these are folks who have a lot of discretionary power in our communities that can maybe take a young kid and send them to a drug treatment program versus charging them as an adult and sending them to adult prison. All of these things harm our communities.
Definitely. And, speaking on that, as a 17-year-old, that your mind doesn't develop to you about 25, most human beings, but did you really understand the impact of what could happen if you pulled that trigger at that time? And
not at all. Not at all.
And then even going to jail, like, how did that feel at that age, and the weight of it?
I mean, it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying for me. And I remember even like my first couple of days in prison, like my hands would just be shaking, just like not even like doing anything. It was just so much anxiety. And I was like, I'm here and I'm probably going to be here forever. And so it was something that was very tough for me, that I'm glad I got through.
Yeah. And just speaking on, word of encouragement for the youth that might be going through something like that at that age, what could you say to them so they, because I know you always speak about, that one mistake and
right.
Not being judged by that one mistake, but how to overcome and kind of avoid, those type of mistakes.
Sure. I mean, some of the things I tell, especially young people, is we don't have to be defined by mistakes that we made. Like I go into prisons a lot now and I talk to young people in prison with long sentences. And I tell them like, your life does not have to be over. And, I use my story as an example of someone who comes from where they come from, who has been successful. And, I hope to encourage folks to like embrace education as well. That's been something that's been critical to me turning my life around. I mean, just vocational trades. I mean, you take someone who like, breaks into someone's car and they go to prison, they can learn how to like fix cars and they can come home and get a job. And it's a lot of things that we can think about or pursue that can turn our lives around, even if we're already in the streets. And another thing, the most important thing, is when you have something on your mind, you should have someone, all of us should have someone that we can call and like just talk to and get advice. That was something that was important to me as a young kid. I would be going through stuff and I would feel like no one's going to understand what I'm going through, or people shooting at me and I'm shooting at people. And I might feel like my uncle could like give me some advice, but I would be scared to tell my uncle because I didn't want him to get the police involved and stuff like that. But like, we got to be willing to open up more about what's going on in our lives.
And so how important, like you said, education has been in your life currently still?
Yeah. Oh, it's critical. Like, so now I'm a lifelong student. So even now, I've got some offers to go to like some colleges to go back to school, but right now I'm focusing on like my art career. But I still read books. Like I have, a bunch of books here now, my book included, but like reading about Picasso. I've been studying more Italian because I have some speeches coming up. And then I go on YouTube. I go on YouTube about an hour a day and learn something. And I encourage other people to do that. We have a lot of resources right at our fingertips. And so I just try to leverage them and just try to be better every single day.
And you got your degree in prison, but
yeah,
they've taken away a lot of those type of programs in prisons currently, I think.
Yeah, so there are some programs, but example, the college program that I was in was shut down after maybe 3 years, and so but a lot of people were able to get college degrees, but they shut it down. But there are some college programs all around the U.S. That is, I think, it's being funded in part by the federal Pell Grant. Some of that money's trickling down and covering it. So hopefully that is extended and continues, because I think it makes our community safer.
Good, good. And can you tell us a little about your furniture business? Because I think that's a nice story to talk about, because like I saw you in one place to speak that that's art as well. So
totally art. It's no different from a canvas. It's wood with fabric stretched over it. I in particular like restoring old furniture that has like some provenance or some story behind it. But just making furniture, and good furniture, you should have it like all your life. You pass it on to your kids. And so that's a skill set that I learned in prison in a vocational shop. And that was something that I wanted to do when I came home. And so I still make furniture now and still work with wood and fabrics and stuff like that. I just think it's pretty cool. It's somewhat of a dying industry, but that's better for me, because that means, less people that can do it, more money I can charge.
Right. And so your grandfather was a very strong mentor in your life. Can you speak on how it helped turn your life around?
Yeah, my grandfather was a very strong influence in my life. He was like my dad. But now as I'm older, I realize like his style of parenting was, kind of like that tough love. There was no like, he would tell me he loved me sometimes, maybe like 3 or 4 times, like since I known him. But it was just like, this what you gonna do as I say, not as I do, that kind of thing. But he had a very strong work ethic. My grandmother too. So I'm glad, just growing up Monday through Friday with my grandparents, like that rubbed off on me. And so it really gave me a really strong work ethic. I'll never allow anyone to outwork me, and no job is like beneath me. I'll rake leaves. I'll do whatever I need to do to pay the bills.
Cool. And so what's your thoughts on how we can break the cycle of violence in the Black community?
So I think I believe it starts at home. And I think there has to be some kind of coalition or understanding of like our parents and our school teachers and folks in our community, right? All of us, because if you think about it, I think about myself, and my grandmother would tell me, or my grandfather would tell me something like in the morning before school, like, mind your business, or like, don't bother people, you be okay. And then my friends had my ear for about 9 hours, and they would be telling me something different. And so, we got to understand as parents who our kids are spending their time with. We got to understand, like, we got to be more involved in our communities, all of us. Like, we got to go into the schools at PTA meetings. If you're in church, you got to be involved, because it does take a village. Because just you telling your kid or just providing a house and food is not enough, especially in the Black community, because the people wasn't telling me about when police come around the corner, they're going to jump out on you. You're going to do this. And it's like, well, why? And like, people are telling me, it's like, cause you Black. And so I developed this image of like police, and it's like, they out to get us. And we just got to be more involved in our young people's lives. And then the other thing too, like I've done gang mediation for years, and most people just don't know how to resolve conflicts, especially in the Black community. Like all we know is like, you can't disrespect me. I can't allow it. It's all these things, but there's things that we can learn, tools where both parties can walk away. It can be resolved in a way where, people's prides are intact. And so that's something I did in prison. Those are some things I've done since I've been here in Baltimore. But there's a list of things that we can do to help our community. But like the other thing too that I left out is the policies that were put in place that created all of this. And so we got to vote. We got to make our voices heard. We got to run for office. If they're not giving us what we want, we got to run and change the legislation and these policies that have decimated these communities, because all that stuff was done on purpose. We go back in history, like people sat down. This was the equivalent of like a forest fire. People like drop those matches, and this fire just spread it, and it's decimated communities all over the country.
Right. True. And so how can we as a community break the stigma around returning citizens and give more support to people, as they transition?
We have to champion our people who have been successful.
Okay.
In America, we're so quick to highlight all the negative stuff of person, like, why is this person out of prison? And like, they shouldn't have been out in the first place. And, everyone in prison is not going to want to turn their life around. It just doesn't work that way, right? They're probably not just ready. But like, we got a lot of people who come home and are successful. We need to be writing stories. We need to be encouraging these people to tell their story to our young people, just so they can see it. Because like, I remember when I was growing up, they'd be like, yeah, you could be a business person, you could be a doctor. And it's like, I don't know no doctors that look like me. Well, show me one. Where they at? And they'd be like, they out there. And it's like, well, I don't know where they at. I never seen one. And so they need to know that we exist. And so like, that's important.
Yes. And so, you built a support system around you while you were in prison that helped you transition. What attributes should a person have when building a support system, a sustainable support system?
So I would say a strong work ethic, because, I would reach out to people for help. And oftentimes I didn't have any relationships with these folks, but I figured like these seem like good people. And I would reach out. Even when I was in prison, I would write letters to outside organizations. But people like to help people that they see trying to help themselves or help others. And so sometimes you got to get out there and do the best you can. And people are always watching. And it was the same for me when I got out of prison. Like, I was just doing what I could in my community, even on my days off, racing kids up and down the street, helping the grandmothers, and just doing whatever I could in my community. But people were watching me. And when the time came, people were like, well, how can we help? And it's like, I want to start my own business. I want to do this. And someone wrote me a check. And it was just like, go do it. And I remember just crying. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I'll pay you back. It says, don't pay me back. You go pay it forward.
That's good. And you got your degree from U of B, University of Baltimore?
Yeah, so technically I got 3 classes to take before I graduate.
Okay.
And so I started my tour, my book, and my school was like, you should take some time off and go do all this stuff. And like, so right now we're working on them giving me credits for a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now so that I can graduate. But I do plan to go back and graduate for sure, because it's important. I got to check it off.
Cool. And I see you mixing with a lot of people in the Baltimore art scene, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
So, but I don't think a lot of people know about the culture in Baltimore, particularly around art, Micah, Artscape, a lot of different art-focused synergy going on. But you speak on that, love.
Totally. So, like, Baltimore is a hub for artistic activity. So, when I was saying, like, the street dancers, we got the best dancers, and it's a lot of us out here. Like, they get busy. We have some awesome painters here in Baltimore. Amy Sherrill, who painted Michelle Obama's one of the heroes. I was showing you Terrell Gibbs, Devin Allen, Jeffrey Kent. We just have like tons of artists here, dancers, like especially like ballerinas. We got like some really talented folks here, poets, writers. And so we have some of the best of what the world has to offer. I just think that our reputation, because of all the challenges that we face as far as crime and corruption, kind of clouds out a lot of our talent. But like, that's our job to champion our talent. And so that's what I hope to accomplish, like with my book and through my art, to let people know that we're dope.
Cool. Any picks for mayor?
Not at the moment. Someone texted me this morning and asked me that. And so I think I know most of the people that's running, and I just need more. I need more information before I make a decision. And honestly, I'm biased, right? I want specific information about criminal justice reform and how to make our community safer.
Okay. And what do you think can be done at the city level?
Yeah, we have to really invest in our schools.
Okay.
we have to invest in our schools, and then we have to change the way people are. We have to change the prison experience. Most of the people, a third of people, at least in the state of Maryland, that are incarcerated, they come back to Baltimore, and so we need to invest in the education or just do it differently the way it is, because these are the folks, we don't want people coming back into our communities worse, and that's what's happening. Hits are being sanctioned from inside of prisons. Our schools are failing our children. Like young people are not learning how to read up to standards. So like those things that we have to make an emergency, and we have to like really like take it serious. And the rest of the stuff, we have other challenges, but those are like relatively solvable challenges.
Okay. I just want to shout out the book one more time. So if you're the first 20 subscribers to Rundle Patriot, will be entered in a raffle for a signed copy of the master plan. And so can you speak about your actual master plan? Because one thing I love how you spoke about is writing it down. I think a lot of people don't like writing things down. They try to keep everything in their head, but I think, speak on the paper, write it down.
Yeah, totally. So like for me, when I put it on paper and I hang it up, it's law. And I share that with my team. It's like, this is what I'm doing. This is the new mission. Yeah. And folks, okay, if I see you slipping, like I'm gonna call you out. And it's like, I want you to. Mm-hmm. And so super important. There's other things that, that's a part of like my master plan, but just education is a big component of it. Paying it forward, and also rewarding yourself with stuff. Thinking about like, what is it like, even if it's like material things, if it's like, I have some stuff on there that I put on when I was young, like, I wanted some gloves, or I wanted to buy my dream car, but okay, if that's what we want, then figure out a strategy of where you want to go, and then you work backwards. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna build up my credit to like this score. I'm gonna start saving my money. I'm gonna finance a car, and I'm gonna do this, and just like things, like the right way to do stuff. And so that's essentially like what my master plan was about. It's like about 2 pages. It's like things that I wanted to accomplish. So I'm like 98% complete.
Wow, that's great. And I'm glad you spoke on holding yourself accountable. And what other attributes you think would say people should have to make sure they stay on their plan?
Resilience.
Okay.
So having resilience, because there's always going to be challenges in our lives, right? And I encounter some young people where they feel entitled, like you should give it to us, or it's this, so everything should be perfect, whatever. And that's just not how life is. Mm-hmm. And also to the people who've been through stuff, like I've been through all kinds of stuff, right? And I could go to an employee and say, look, I've been like, they don't care, right? Like the world does not, like, they'll step on you if you try to like play the sympathy card. And so what I tell folks is like, you got to take your experiences, all this stuff you've been through, all that pain, and you have to harness that, and that becomes your energy. Mm-hmm. And you got to prove to yourself, and you got to prove to other people. So, if it's a job that you're trying to get, you got to approach that job with confidence. You got to know that people are going to judge you because you made some mistakes. So you got to work harder. You got to do the right thing even when people aren't looking. And so I just encourage people to do that. And then like I also call it a positive delusion in the book. I had to really believe that I would be free. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to get up every day, allow me to deny like temptations when people would knock on my door and say, get up, we smoking in some alcohol for you. Like, come on, get your cup. And I'd be like, oh man, I'd be like, I can't. Mm-hmm. Like you gotta just put that seed in your mind that's like, I'm not gonna fail, that I am gonna be successful.
So what's the future for Kris Wilson?
So I wanna continue to paint, and I wanna do some work through my foundation, the Kris Wilson Foundation, and continue to support the other Chris's or Christines in the world. And just I wanna grow old. I wanna enjoy life. I wanna travel. Yeah.
All right. Where's the last place you traveled to?
I think the last place I was in Colombia.
Wow. Okay.
Art.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And so, where can people find your art at?
So people can find my art mostly on Instagram at the moment, Kris Wilson Baltimore, and through my website, kriswilson.biz. Okay. And Facebook too as Kris Wilson.
All right. And will you be writing another book soon?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Cool.
What about a film?
So my book is actually being turned into a feature film.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Right now.
All right. And can you tell us about your foundation as well?
Yeah. So Kris Wilson Foundation, which has been in place for about a year. And I fund mostly prison education programs, financial literacy, art programs, and I think that's about it right at the moment. But that's what we're doing right now.
And so how did you get into financial literacy?
So I feel like it's important. Like when I got out, well, I studied it in prison. And then when I went to business school, I really started to grasp the importance of managing money, fiscal stewardship, doing my taxes and stuff like that. That's just something I don't think they don't teach it in school. And so that's something that I want to programs and initiatives that I want to fund.
Okay. And so when you think of like a successful reentry program, what would be the main components of it?
I mean, it's so all of the things that I mentioned would be components of it. I think financial literacy, emotional support, continued therapy, job opportunities, soft skills training. Like, prison kind of makes you a little tough. So you kind of got to soften up a little bit. You got to change your walk and all that when you get out. So just those little things, right? So something like that would be really like cool, program, I think.
Okay. And I know you spoke once about kind of like experiencing spirituality, higher spirituality in prison.
Right.
Can you a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, like God's definitely played a role in my life. And I credit even me being out through the grace of God. I had been denied reconsideration for my sentence about 5 times before it actually happened. And I remember just sitting in my cell one night, like talking to God. And it's like, I read about, signs, and you part seas and you made bushes talk and turn the water into wine. So I need my sign to know that you up there. And I had a court date 2 weeks later. Wow. And I had my sentence reduced. And so that was kind of like, it restored my faith.
Cool. Your story is just an inspiration. I thank you for this interview, and
no problem.
Definitely let people know to never give up. But I love the fact that you created your own master plan. And not to say you beat the system, but it did help you get out of that system.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm very happy to have been able to interview you in this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Let me give a shout out to the Rundle Patriot, our producer Vicky Bruce. And this is a volunteer-based platform. So taking all donations at the Facebook page and the shop button, you can subscribe or go to rundlepatriot.org. And any last shout outs, Kris?
Yeah, just check out the book, The Master Plan, also the audio book if you want. You can listen to it driving to work. And leave me some reviews on Amazon or whatever, good or bad, hopefully good. And follow me on Instagram, Kris Wilson, Baltimore.
And I'm assuming audiobooks on all platforms?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Kris.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to meet you. All right.
All right, guys.
All right. Peace.